Greetings and welcome to another powerful edition of the Community Defender Talk Show. One powerful hour of truth in a day of falsehood. I'm your host, Brother Darrell Muhammad, and we are very happy that you have tuned in to tonight's program. And as usual, we have a wonderful show planned for you. And I wanted to mention a couple of things before we get into the main topic, which deals with justice for Victor White. And of course, we have Victor White Sr. in the studios, our brother. We want to, of course, thank you for coming out. And everything is moving, in a certain direction. But of course, I'm going to let Reverend White talk to you about that in just a moment. But I wanted to mention a couple of things before we get into that, and that is, I wanted to mention to you that you can get this, of course, on my Facebook page. But the Savior's Day message by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is on YouTube, the full program that happened on Sunday the 25th. So you can get that on my Facebook page. My Facebook page is an open page where you can just go directly to it, and whatever content is posted, you can share it. And you can, of course, watch the videos that we have posted. We also have posted the last live show that we did is also posted on my Facebook page. And so we want you to check those things out, review those things. And I would say put positive things into your ear, positive things into your eye, positive things into your heart, because there's a revolution that has to occur starting first in the mind. And so we must make sure that we're on those positive things. And of course, the caption, "Here I Stand," where the Honorable Louis Farrakhan goes through a litany of trials that he faced and opposition against the truth that he teaches, yet he is still standing and not bowing to the enemy, not selling out to the enemy, not being afraid of the enemy. And so many of us talk about God and how God is able to protect us, how God will come to you. He may not come when you want him, but he's always what? On time. Yes, sir. But we may talk that, but a lot of times when we need to have that courage that those words imply, sometimes we fall short, Reverend White, of the courage that's supposed to go along with those words. So if we believe in God and we believe he's able, then that means that we stand for and fight for what is right without fear of the enemies of what is right.
That's right. We have no fear.
You see? And so, the book says that perfect love casts out fear.
Yes, sir.
So, we see women, mothers, going into burning houses to get their babies. Mm-hmm. Why? Because perfect love casts out fear. Women face flames when their children are in danger. And so as a people, Reverend White, I just believe that those things that we talk about in church, we have to make them actual in our lives. We have to believe in the protection of God when we stand for what's right. And you wouldn't have so much selling out in Baton Rouge at the legislature. You wouldn't have so much selling out at our metro councils. You wouldn't have so much selling out at the mayor and in a lot of our organizations. You wouldn't have so much kowtowing to the powers of oppression if we truly believed in the God of liberation. And so I wanted to lay that out and kind of set the tone for what we're going to go into, and that is that you and your family experienced a significant tragedy now 4 years ago, where your son was murdered by law enforcement, and then they said after handcuffing him that he shot himself while being handcuffed in the back, that he shot himself in the chest.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
And the coroner, whoever that is, went along with an obvious lie, showing you that there is a corruption in government, that there is a lack of integrity among those in elective office, that there is absolute wickedness to cover up murder, and those people who want to hold you and I accountable
Yes.
don't themselves want to be held accountable. And so, I think there was a show in this area called Holding Accountable. Did they talk about the person who may have shot a person that was handcuffed? Did they try to hold those police accountable?
But here's the killer. The head city marshal was sentenced this week for contempt of court.
Yeah.
The person who
Pope.
put on the show.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. Oh, Pope.
That's amazing.
Brian Pope.
Brian Pope.
Ain't that something? So it just goes to show holding accountable. We don't. It just seems that there's so much inequity, so much inconsistency with the holding accountable of people. So a lot of our police departments are pretty much criminal enterprises, racist criminal enterprises that deal dope, are involved in prostitution, involved in gambling, extortion, murder, all kinds of things that a lot of police departments are involved in, and we see this corruption all over the place. Now, your family experienced a significant tragedy. Victor White III, your wonderful son, a young black man who was really minding his own business, falsely accused, and then later ends up murdered. And of course, they said it was suicide. Now, I'm just going to illustrate this for y'all right quick. If you're handcuffed in the back, all right, and then a bullet comes through here, but yet they say you committed suicide by being handcuffed in the back and the bullet comes through the front. How can you, if you've been searched twice, how can a gun come up and then you can't even reach the gun because everybody knows they put those handcuffs on very tight? How can you then take and put a gun and point it directly into your chest and fire that weapon? How's that possible? But that's what the coroner wants us to believe. That's what the sheriff department wants us to believe. And we are not crazy enough to believe it. And so that's what has brought this brother here to us. And I guess if you can update us on it, we know that the coroner lied. We know that the police lied, the sheriff people lied. We know that lies have been told, all kind of corruption. If you can kind of update us on what has happened. Let me get the mic a little closer to you so that our listening audience and viewing audience will get this information that we most valuably need. Reverend White, go ahead and let us know where we are today with this case and whatever background information you want to give.
Sure, Brother Muhammad. I appreciate you and the community defender listening audience. Man, we're very appreciative to you and grateful to you. You, the show, and then all the individuals that make this show possible. And as you were saying, Christopher Tate was the one that actually did the autopsy, and Carl Ditch is the coroner. And so therefore they did agree that my son, but he also put in there based upon the statement that my son said, "I'm gone now." Justin Ortiz was the officer, said that he heard his last words, "Will tell my family I love them and I'm gone now." And that's what I find to be a suspect, because I talk to my son every night. We talked every night, and that Sunday night, last night that we talked before that Monday morning they killed him, I talked to him that morning when he got off work, and as you say, so we looked and we seen the cover up, because all they had to do was take him back to the store. They said that was a fight that happened at a Hop-In store on Lewis Street, and all the officer had to do, Justin Ortiz, all they had to do was take him back. And so they would see that he wasn't involved in the fight, and his life wouldn't have been taken today. And as I said, that's the thing. It's 4 years ago yesterday on March on March the 3rd, when we got the phone call March the 3rd, and 5:41 that morning, where they said that from starting with Katie Morrell of the Louisiana Criminal Investigation Division, to Louis Alcott and the Iberia Pass Sheriff and Carl Ditch in the coroner's office, that's all we were told. We were given a runaround by the Department of Justice as well as the FBI and those who conducted the investigation. There was a lot of things that were so suspect and they supposed to be investigating, but they did not do an independent investigation. That was the other part that really got us with the Department of Justice and the FBI, that at the time they were looking for the guy that was doing the beheading. and they spent all the money on finding out who that was, but yet and still you couldn't find out really what happened to my son or do an independent investigation. What they did was they said they reviewed information that was handed over them from the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division, and they called that an independent examination of the materials and the facts. Well, that wasn't, because you should have done your own. The autopsy could have been done by them. It should have been independent, not based upon what Christopher Tave done, because we know, when they take a look at Christopher Tave, that was another case in Alexandria. There was a case in I think maybe Thibodeau or somewhere in that area, where he did the same thing, where the young man, they said he shot himself in the back of the head with a shotgun. But he did the autopsy, and he said the same thing, that it was possible for him to pull the trigger on a shotgun and shoot himself in the back of the head. And that's Sister Donna Whitmer. And then we're aware of that, and so that's what I'm saying. We got all these individuals. So why aren't they investigating them? And that's what that got me. And here we are 4 years later. We still have no resolution. 4 years later, we're still waiting for justice, because we want the mind and cause of my son, Victor White III, to be changed from suicide to homicide, because they killed him, as you demonstrated. And on top of that, he's left-handed. My son was left-handed, and so they're gonna say he was left-handed, took his non-dominant hand, shot himself in the chest while handcuffed behind his back, searched twice, and you see on that video, one of the videos with Justin Ortiz actually, or Officer actually, in his pocket. And pulling up out of his pocket, so it's highly improbable as well as unlikely that it happened, and so we're going to march on. We're going to continue. That was the civil trial was scheduled for last month, but it's been postponed, and I think for good reason. And yet and still, we're proudful. As you said, see, I'm not afraid to sit and talk about it, and I'm not afraid to call their names. And as you mentioned, the politicians and the mayors and all that. But one thing I have to say is we need those pastors. Those individuals that are sitting in the church houses to come out and support a cause, because as I said, Pastor Mark, he had told me that he was going to wait till the facts come out and all this, yet and still, well, their facts are not our facts. We see men of color, women of color, African American men, we getting brutalized by police, and then they lie about it. I mean, there's known to lie. And Iberia Parish is off there known to lie, they're known to plant drugs. You got 10 people in jail, 2 more Praise John just pled guilty, Captain Frederick just pled guilty. So you got 12 individuals that have pled guilty, and here we are sitting up there trying to believe what the Iberia Parish Sheriff Department is doing when they were crooked from Louis Alpha all the way down to the bottom. And we got pastors saying, well, we're going to wait and let's see, and we got African American people jumping on their side, and still us coming together, banding together, and standing up, because as I said, the Word of God tells us that God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but a love, power, and of a sound mind, and we got power when we unite together, and that's what it's going to take. But long as they can keep us divided, long as they can put separation in between us and the causes that we fight for, then we'll never get anything done. And that's why he said we're going to always be an oppressed people, because of the fact that we cannot come together and take the fight to our oppressor, when we are helping us to stay oppressed and to remain under the oppressor, and until we get to the facts and come together and say, you know what, well, we're really sick and tired of being sick and tired, and come together.
Well, everything that you're saying is right on time, and of course it's been 4 years, and of course this did happen during the time of an Obama Justice Department.
Yes.
Now we're dealing with a Justice Department of Trump, and of course Jeff Sessions. So if it didn't happen under Obama, it's highly unlikely that it would happen under Jeff Sessions, who, of course, it seems like he has a war, in my view, on the black community in ramping up all of those old policies that caused this mass incarceration. And of course, the government, for the most part, has been the entity that has acted most greatly against the rise of our people. And it just has, from all of the stuff that they do now to all of the things that they've done to thwart our rise. And then a lot of us are in the community very cowardly. and just weak in we talk God, but we bow to the devil each and every day. And that's literally what we do. We will talk about God in the pulpit, sing about God in the choir stand, and then jump for Satan on Monday morning. And it happens over and over again. And I am, I've always been an advocate for calling these kinds of people out, calling these kinds of circumstances out, because you can't be with Jesus if you're not for justice.
Yes.
It's impossible.
Right.
And I think that Martin Luther King, who was talked about this past February during Black History Month, many people try to invoke his name to justify whatever they want to justify. But the bottom line of it is that Martin Luther King was becoming a lot more revolutionary. Mm-hmm. And one of the things he was saying was to get economic pain to the oppressor. Mm-hmm. He said, take your money out of white banks and put it in black banks. He said, take your insurance out from white insurance companies and take it out with black insurance companies. A lot of people don't know Martin Luther King said that. So part of the legacy of Martin Luther King is the patronizing of black business. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things he talked about as he was on his way off the planet due to a government assassin's bullet. Mm-hmm. So we're up against a deeply entrenched, wicked enemy that will murder somebody and then lie about it later and try to make you look like you're crazy for questioning them. Mm-hmm. And then they get all of their liars lined up along with their scared to death Negroes. So when a pastor said they're going to wait till all the facts come out, well, if the fact is he was handcuffed and couldn't reach to the front, and yet they're saying it's suicide, that's the facts. They're out, you see. And what that was an excuse in my view. If that happened like that, it was an excuse in my view for cowardice. In other words, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to get involved. But any one of us, Reverend, this could happen to. This could happen to my son, my daughter, my family. It could happen to my mama. We don't know who it's going to happen to next. But all of us who are black people in America know that we or our family could be the next tragedy. And I will say this, the family of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge is still awaiting justice. With everything being on video, they're still awaiting justice. The people sabotaged the cameras with your son, but we got video from 5 different phones, some of which is not even on YouTube. The cameras that were at the station say what he did. He literally put a gun to the man and then said he was going to kill him, wound up doing it, and then they're saying there's no basis to charge him. So we got a system that is tilted against the black man and woman. Point blank, bottom line, it is an evil system that does everything in its power to disallow justice. Justice is not what they want.
No, yeah, as I said, we're up against a system that's been broken. Well, actually, it's broken when it comes down to people of color, African Americans. It's broken, and it's always been that way. It's always been stacked up against us. Like I said, here we got the modern day slavery, incarceration. When we look at the incarceration, modern day slavery, and then look at what happened, even in that case, under the Alcolum administration, right? They had almost 8 to 10 deaths that was in custody deaths, but with no one saying anything. And I said, and no one can actually take a look at that when they should have been looking at that.
In that small area, 8 to 10 deaths.
8 to 10 in custody deaths, and in 8 years, and while he was in office, and yet and still, no one wants to question it or too afraid. Let me take that back. Not question, they are too afraid to be for fear of who he was, because again, he the kingpin sitting up there, like he's running a mafia right out of Iberia Parish, and that's how he talked, and that's how he used to behave. And so folks were scared. And I have to say, you know, there are, and the pastors in Liberia, when we were there, were doing the work of, we were doing the work of the Lord and doing some things on Hopkins Street, and yet and still, you know, trying to educate pastors. Again, that was my thing, was to educate pastors on how to go back in those same neighborhoods, and Don said it back enough, go back into those neighborhoods, you know, and we need to teach our people. We need to teach our people, because they wasn't going to teach them. We need to educate our people what resources are out there, how to connect with those resources, and bring the resources to them. Because, you know, a lot of times, I mean, large as Iberia Pass, there's no bus system. You know, see, a part of being oppressed, so you can't get around. There's no bus system, and again, you can see it's purposely done. You know, but yet and still, so our job was to go in there, and then when my son was killed, they said it could have been anyone's son. But it is everyone's son. See, because but when it happened, right, as I said, Pastor Darren Schofield basically was the only pastor that reached out, allowed us to use some of his facilities. You know, and then in the end, I think that some things may have happened to him, but, you know, intimidating factor, because after that, we went to go speak with him, called never returned, and the call went by, you know, to use the church that he allowed us to use, right, go by. There was a couple of times went by, and the funeral waited on him, doctor never showed up. You see, so stuff like that, you know, and again, it doesn't, you know, and it's very difficult, because if it was me, it would have been totally different. Because no, I'm not going to worry about no man, you know. I'm not worried about no man, because you took my son's life, and I will give my life for my son's life. Since I can't get my son's life back, I will give my life for my son. So I'm not afraid of what you can do to me, because you're not going to shut me up. You know, and that's what we need. We need individuals to come out and say, we got to either stand for something or fall for anything. Or we should be tired of falling for anything, and now it's time for us to stand for something. There's a cause, there's a movement, and we should be a part of that, because, again, the killing has not stopped. You know, and there we got individuals reaching from Ohio, you know, contacting. We got Ohio, Portland, Oregon, and we got Kendall, Louisiana. That these things have happened to them, and you know, and we become a fraternity, a fraternal order, right? That we didn't actually become a part of, but because of the police officers, and not just in Iberia Pass, it is happening all over the world. Baltimore, we see Minnesota, you know. So again, we need them to fight.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take this call. Go ahead, call.
Yes, I wanted to say a very good program. I couldn't ask for a better topic than trying to let everybody know about the fourth anniversary of the murder of your son, Mr. White. And Mr. White, also, you have, we already know that Cortez is the one that killed your son. And with over $431,500 in plaintiff's fee going to the assault unit, something is definitely wrong. I mean, these are showing you that there's problems in New Iberia with the New Iberia Sheriff Department, and we just want to commend you for continuously letting people know that you want justice, though there could never be no real justice because you couldn't get your baby back, but still, those dogs in the New Iberia Police Department, all of those crooked criminals, they need to pay some type of restitution the same way or less than what they done with your son. So we want to commend you to keep up the good work, and we're going to go ahead and do the best that we can to keep the word out on what there still hasn't been no justice here in New Iberia, Louisiana. And we want to thank you, sir, and give our love to your family. All right. Bye-bye.
Yes, definitely, Carla. We really appreciate that, and we thank God for you all. We thank God for those who actually support us. You know, there are so many individuals that are supporters that are still supporting us. There's too many in the call, but we want to say we're grateful to all of them. Just in what the caller was saying, that they spent all that money. They had the Impact Team, as they were called before they went by the name of Impact. They were calling themselves the Alka Thugs. You know, see, so they was out there road cops, and he claimed during the trial that he had no idea what they were doing out there. You know, that's highly improbable because of the fact that he was giving them their marching orders. And you know, but yes, he was acquitted. That he was acquitted by man, but his judgment there is going to come. You know, so as the caller was saying, but they expend all this money, they're paying out these lawsuits and everything. But there's something terribly wrong down in Iberia Parish because it's still crime rate is high, and you know they're not looking to stop it because, like I said, I'll never forget that conversation that I had with Louis Arco when he got elected, and the community center that was on Hopkins Street, and he said he did not understand why they had it there, and it was so close to the courthouse, and so they started putting the biker boys at that point, which was committing all kind of crime themselves. As you said, they were drug dealers, they were drug dealers, the drug users, but they was using the community center. So that was a way to stop the individuals that was coming in for mentoring program, for substance abuse program. That was the way to stop them from coming in because with the presence of the police, they was afraid. You know, so that was one way to do it. And then, like he said, well, down there on Mississippi Street and down in the West End, he said that was a culture of their own. He gonna let that go on with, because it's ingrained in them from mom and daughter, whole family selling drugs and all that. He was gonna let that go on. That was, and then come back and say that he went to go solve the problem, and have a Senate Mill message that he had got an attorney to sue me for slandering him and making him look like a country bumpkin. And I said every time, well, that's what you are. When it comes down to me, that's all you are, country bumpkin. Because I mean, I'm not afraid. There's no fear for me of Louis Arco. But yet and still, we have people that's in Iberia Parish that's so afraid. You know, if you're that afraid, then you maybe ought to move. But they're still there.
Well, it goes back to whether or not we believe really in God.
Yes.
And I say this all the time. Some of us are not converted to Jesus Christ. We're converted to Jesus White.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Jesus White is a false concept. A concept that does not allow us to have that courage that an understanding of Christ would have us to have. We need to be courageous people. When you've already lost 2 going on 3 generations of your young people to the plans of a wicked government, why not stand to protect the present generation?
Mm-hmm.
Why not stand to create a future for the present generation and do it in such a way following what Jesus taught? Do unto others as you'd have them to do unto you. You see? And doing it based upon those words. But, that continued fear, not being converted to Jesus Christ, but being converted to the false concept of Jesus White, is problematic. It does not give our people the connection to God that they need to move forward and to think in an analytical way. We think based upon our fears. And I come from a family that has a lot of clergy in it. Mm-hmm. A strong Baptist family, to where even though I'm a Muslim, mm-hmm. but my father is a pastor of a church with 6,000 members. I have all kind of other people in my family that pastor churches, that preach, and so on and so forth. I grew up in church, listening to the words of my elders, being taught those values. But for me, I believe, that we should be encouraged. I believe that, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. I believe that. But evidently, a lot of the people in the clergy believe that the weapons that are formed against those who fight for justice will prosper. They don't believe that. And that's the problem. You recite it to me, Rev, in church, but do you believe
when you leave it
that no weapon formed against you shall prosper? Do you really believe that? We talk about David and Goliath. Goliath was said to be 6 cubits high. Mm-hmm. That's 9 feet tall.
Yes, sir.
And he literally told Goliath what he was going to do to him. And he went across the brook and found 5 smooth stones.
Yes, sir.
And he only needed 1 stone. Yeah. And that 1 stone represented belief in God. Mm-hmm. And that's all he needed. And he was able to to slay Goliath.
Yes,
You
sir.
see? And he wanted to know, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is he?
Who is it? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about those biblical narratives, we have to internalize the meaning of them and go forward in God's name. Go forward in the name of God and in the name of His Christ and defeat the enemy.
Right.
And that's what we can do time and time again.
Gotta let them know the other bomb in Gideon. You know, but yet and still, we the people, we have to stand. We have to stand for something. And it's now is the time to stand, you know, and see, that's the other part. No, God don't want those coward soldiers.
No.
God don't want coward soldiers. See, that's what I'm saying. You know, if we can just find one person that is upright and enough, God will take care of that.
Absolutely. Go ahead, call him on there with the community defender.
How you doing, Brother Al?
I'm doing awesome, fantastic, mixed with a little bit of outstanding, with a sprinkle of off the chain on the top. You're on the community defender with Reverend White.
Hey, Reverend White, I just want to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you,
I
sir.
could empathize with you so much, and just keep up the work that you're doing for your son and your family. Because it's been 4 years and I'm still fascinated with this case. I'm like, how can a person be handcuffed in a police car and wind up committing suicide? And of all places to commit suicide, why a police car? You know, I'm just dumbfounded at that. And a lot of times I'm wondering, like, why can't we as like men form our own police force and take care of our own communities, you know, because in college I took an elective criminal justice, and so I understand a little bit how policing got started, and I was able to take study of the courts, so I understand the court system. So I was just wondering that you think it would help more for our community as black men, we would just form our own police force and just just police ourselves. I'll hang up and I'll listen to your response. And once again, I'm sorry for your loss.
Absolutely. The thing I would say off top is we do have the ability to secure our own community. You know, we must have the will and the love for those in our community to be able to do those things for ourselves. Now, I can always give an example of the Fruit of Islam, the Muslims who went in some of the worst housing projects in D.C. and literally within weeks eliminated the sale of drugs. It was an open air drug market. But of course there was pressure to get those brothers out of there because it was interfering with the plan of the enemy. I'll give another example. There was a murder some years ago at Glen Oaks High School in Baton Rouge, in the same subdivision where Sister Deborah actually grew up, a woman who I got married to in 1995. And she's, of course, a co-host on the program. In that school, somebody was shot and killed. Well, the men in the community rose up and formed a group of people called Security Dads, where the men would take turns and would go to the school and deal with these young boys. I'm talking about men from Glen Oaks, in the Glen Oaks area, who had, many of whom had children and grandchildren in the school, and literally patrolled the school, inside of the school themselves, and kept another murder from occurring from that time, around 20 years ago, up till now. We haven't had that happen because men stood up. Now that same group applied for some funding, for state funding, because they were a legitimate organization, and the Jindal cut the funding for Security Dads in Glen Oaks with a line item veto. So when we stand up and do for ourselves, understand that the enemy is never going to support you. You have to be willing to do that out of the love for your people and the desire for peace in your own heart. You have to have that. And I've seen examples where black men stand up And when they get tired of certain things happening, it'll stop. And that's just the bottom line. They got together, met at somebody's house, fried some fish, had some red beans or whatever, jambalaya, whatever they ate. And they got together and said, not again. And because they did that, from that time until now, it has not happened again. They applied for funding, they didn't get it, but guess what?
Still rolling.
They're still rolling because
rolling.
they want a secure environment for their children at Glen Oaks High School in Baton Rouge. That's what it is. And that's an example right there in Baton Rouge. Let's go ahead and take this call right quick. Go ahead and call you on the air with the community defender.
Good evening, Brother Darren, and good evening, Reverend White. Great to see you back. Reverend White, I definitely see you in your endeavor all these years fighting a fight that seems so insurmountable to us, especially dealing with the issue in Ivory Parish. Reverend White and Brother Darren, you could lay all of this. You could lay a lot of blame to go around in our community concerning what happened with young Mr. White. You got to start and look at the overall issue with law enforcement in Ivory Parish historically. I know I've been saying this on this show. This show has been at the forefront in informing the public ahead of time how rotten that law enforcement system has been in Ivory Parish. Not one leader, and I know I heard people say, well, you attack the leaders all the time, but you still don't offer no solution. But if leadership knows something is rotten, don't you go out the rotten dogs and you change up and get some new, fresh situation going? They haven't done that, Brother Darren, Reverend White. And because of Reverend White's perseverance in getting the national news media, getting the final call involved, getting the brother communicationism, getting every aspect of media around the country to look at Ivory Parish, we have some semblance of justice, but that's still not enough justice to bring back young Reverend White. And I say this because right now Ivory Parish and the city of Glen is going through an upheaval like no other. Reverend White and Brother Darren, there have been so many murders, senseless murders in our community, and you got to start to lay the blame with a blame at it. When you have bad law enforcement on that level, you're going to have high crime. It's almost like when this sheriff got in office, we had all these explosion of gun violence and murder. So what would say there's a correlation between bad law enforcement and all these murders in New Ivory? I'm not saying that they're completely responsible, but I mean, if you have a situation going that bad, with people pleading every week, and people just have to pick up a bad news ad in Google Ivory Parish or see somebody display it. There was a captain in the previous call that displayed it. The sheriff was involved in a high-profile sexual harassment lawsuit against his department. That tells you something. Something is rotten, and none of these city leaders do think patching it by bringing in a new police force is going to solve things when they're not addressing the overall underlying problem. You will continue to have a situation that would happen with young Brother White if you don't try to address the problems of the past. And I'd like to get your comments on the correlation between bad law enforcement and high crime. Again, thank you so much, my brother, and keep on keeping on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Reverend White.
Yes, as I was saying, we know it's a direct correlation. I mean, if you got rotten apples at the top, they're not going to try to go in there and do anything. And even when they galvanize, or even when they create another police force for New Iberia, well, when they had New Iberia had one, they had to disband it because of the same reason, corruption. And so therefore, corruption beget corruption. So when you bring them in, you're going to pull half of them right from the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department. It's going to go right there because that's what they did. They pulled the people from the New Iberia Police Department. They brought them right to the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department. And then that was one room. He got when they did the lawsuit about sexual harassment, he let him go for a year, brought him right back. Went to St. Martinville, brought him right back. So therefore, that's what it is. It's gonna always be high crime because of the fact is they're not really trying to police those areas. And not only that, and as you were saying earlier, if brothers was riled up together, you know, you can take back your own community because it's our community in which they're allowing this to happen, you know. So, and then, you know, and I seen Iapple, you know, he would give them red beans and rice and everybody go show up over there, you know, but yet and still you get someone that really want to do something. We got politicians there, African-American politicians that see this, understand this, but yet and still have a blind eye to it. So therefore, you know, they're not seeking justice. So if you want to stop the corruption, you're going to have to get individuals that are not afraid to go up against the status quo, that's not afraid to speak out, and therefore we can take back communities. We can go in there, but you got too many people that are afraid to stand up against a drug dealer, to stand up, you know, against those individuals that are corrupt, and some of them already being paid. You got politicians being bought, you know, they're being bought out in African American, whatever. They're being bought out, and then they selling out. See, that's the other part. And like I said, so they know they corrupt. You had politicians that knowing that Abir Pass was corrupt, and they give them over $6 million to put patrol, but yet and still don't put enough patrol people in the area, and so they want it to happen. So, you know, but the people of Abir Pass, they're going to have to stand, you know. The citizenry of Abir Pass have to stand, they're going to have to stand and say, look, well, if you're not going to work on our behalf, then we're not going to elect you. When it comes November and those individuals are ready to be elected, you know, if you're not going to follow, you need to make them put it in writing. Make them put it in writing, make it, because, you know, anything that happens, if you get it in writing, you can come back and lay out the groundwork to remove them, you know. But it's just very difficult to not see the correlation between bad policing and that. As the caller said earlier, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, you know, and I've worked in drug courses, so I looked at certain things like that, and he said, and I've seen, I do assessment, you know, and when I go to court, you know, I do assessment as a substance abuse counselor. You know, and I see how the difference we're treated, but yet and still, right? It's different, and there's a fact that they treat us different, and it's different, and there's a fact that, guess what, we get sentenced different. See, so therefore, it's not just corruption there. When you get inside the legal system, it's corruption in there. You know, so you know, and then you can't get if you don't have the money. You know, you don't have the money, then you sure can't get proper representation. So and then the defender boards, all they're going to do is just assume or say that they're making sure that your rights aren't violated. The right was already violated when the arrest was made. Because, you know, the arrest itself, most of the time the arrest itself, right, they're improper. They're improper because of the fact that most African Americans, most don't know their own rights. And then they get there and their still rights are violated, all in jail. Just like, and as he was saying about the individual that are in jail, Abir Parish, we must understand that there's only one incident, and that's the incident from 2011. That all of those individuals, see, but that, man, they talked about hundreds of cases. Each one of those officers that's sitting in jail right now, the 10 prior to these two, Prejean and Fredrickson, that was convicted, that pled guilty. Right, those individuals talk. Each one of those say 100 or more people that they violated their rights, but they made a deal with the Department of Justice, right? So therefore, they're sitting in jail less than 10 years. But yet and still they're abused over 100. One guy said, I can't even recall. I mean, they said 100 more, 200 maybe more, you know. But yet and still they got him on I think it was the July 2011 incident that happened in the jail where I think the individual and so that's the one that all of them are sitting in jail on. But yet and still I know they are aware of what happened to my son because that's the impact team. Those are the individuals that was involved in my son's murder as well.
So there are all kind of people out there that know the truth, but have not come forward. But of course, I know that the case is working, and I know that you're working on getting the proper information so that you can establish by preponderance of the evidence, you know, the fact that this was a homicide on the part of law enforcement. And I would say that just the circumstantial evidence makes it highly unlikely that were really impossible that the official version of the story can be true. And I think that coroner and his integrity is going to have to be attacked. He's got to be attacked if there were other issues. Whoever did the autopsy, if there were other issues, other similar issues, all of that's going to have to be brought to bear so that the jury or the fact finder gets to hear all of that information so that the proper decision, can be rendered, if at all. But the bottom line of it is you have to go forward. You have to do what you need to do for justice for your son. And I would say that your fight is not just for your son, but it's really for all of us. And a lot of times we don't see ourselves in the struggle of one brother. But I see myself in your struggle. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I see myself in your struggle because, I have children, black children, and that are some beautiful human beings that I want to see those people grow and become nurtured and move forward in life and make a contribution to the black community, bottom line. And I don't, if something like that happened to one of my children, which altogether I have 6 of them, it would be, it would be very, it would be devastating. So I see myself, and the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said this, that as a people, we have to develop a nervous system to where if your pinky toe hurts, the head knows about it. Even though it's way down on the end of the body, the whole body knows that that pinky toe is hurt. And so if it's something that's going on with your son, we have to develop the nervous system where we all feel it. And we are all on one accord and we all line up in that cause, because your cause is all of our causes. We've been in a struggle for justice ever since the chains were taken off our feet and still were in our mind. But we've been in a struggle for justice ever since that time. Nat Turner was in a struggle for justice. So all of these, so if anybody is in a struggle for justice, the sister in Arkansas, whose son was handcuffed, and they said he killed himself. Yeah, Chavis Carter. And so all of this going on. I think it was in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Yes.
So all of this is going on, and like I say, your struggle, the mother's struggle up there, all of that is really the same struggle that we are all, if we're conscious, absolutely a part of, and we have a stake in it. So the outcome of your case has an impact on all of us. And I would hope that we would all be prayerful and supportive of what you're doing, of the case and how the case is moving, and that it would be something that churches talk about. Because it's one thing to talk about David and Goliath, but you are going up against a Goliath in 2018. See what I'm saying? You and your family are like David, going up against a big Goliath, a big wicked system, and you're going at it, with just one stone.
That's all we have.
With just that one stone, belief in God.
Yes, sir.
And that's the picture that we all need to be able to see.
Because when you look at even around there, we got Watika Tillman, Homer, Louisiana. You go to Mamu, DeJuan Guillory, Bill Platt, Keenan Ardwin. It's here. But we all have to come together, because we're suffering. I've been there, Noel up in our St. Martin Parish, so it's here, and so therefore we definitely need to come together and say, because see, when my son happened, man, and their son happened, I went. As I said, with Alton Sterling, we was in Baton Rouge, because of the fact to meet with those families, because I know that feeling. When I got that phone call, I've never forgotten that phone call. I relive it every day. And every time I see one of us gunned down, a son, a mother's, I feel the same way. And that day when it happened to my son, see, but the difference is as you said, they have video. There's no video of my son being gunned down. There's no video, but we seen that, Mike Brown situation, and so I'm right there lockstep with it. It shouldn't be just my son; it's our son, because may be my son. It happened to mine on March the 3rd of 2014, but it could be yours on March the 5th of 2018. So and I'll be right there with you. I'm gonna come support you regardless aware that if we can be there, we will be there because it is ours. You know, and so therefore we all should come together, regardless of if it's here, Alexandria, New Iberia, Lafayette, you know, New Orleans,
I'm gonna
regardless.
say this, I have to bear witness because, yeah, you were in Baton Rouge when Alton Sterling was murdered and the video was shown on national television. You actually were in Baton Rouge with the Sterling family. And matter of fact, I talked to Miss Vita, his aunt, a couple of days ago. And we may actually have her on the program next week, believe it or not. We may actually have her on the program if I can get her up. But anyway, we only got 1 minute left, of course, 2 minutes. I want to thank everybody for listening and for viewing the program. I just want to say, many people said that Black History Month was over last month, but the history of our people is too deep to get under, too high to get over, and too wide to get around. So just make sure that you don't deal with Black History Month, that you deal with your Black History life, and that you make some Black history by doing some good in the Black community. So we don't just want to study it, we want to make some. And that's what we want to do. We want to make some Black history, some good Black history going forward. So I just want to, of course, thank you once again for coming out.
Definitely.
And just understand, I'm not into religious label. This is my Christian brother.
Yes, sir.
And I'm his Muslim brother, but we're brothers.
That's right,
In
brother.
the same struggle. So I just want to, of course, thank everyone for tuning in, and may God continue to bless you and keep you, and may He elevate your mind and renew your heart with love. God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Ready? We just got a few more seconds?
Yeah, a few more seconds.
All right, good deal. Oh, I'm going to put in a plug. Go to my Facebook page, go to finalcall.com, read this speech, and watch the full motion video of it on YouTube. You are going to be amazed at the truth that is revealed on that speech. You'll be able to check it out, and you'll know that God backs us in this day, that we are not a forsaken people, all right? And so having said that, we're going to go ahead and shut it all the way down. The Community Defender will be back in a couple of weeks live here, hopefully. We'll have a member of the Sterling family to deal with the Alton Sterling murder that happened in Baton Rouge. Are we good, my brother director? All right.